You guys have got an absolutely awesome project that you are exploring, and flooring for these kind of steel build or light frame or shipping container. We've actually explored this subject before quite extensively. We've done a couple of different videos on supplying flooring for shipping container conversions. And in that exploration, we have discovered how flooring can either work with you or it can work against you. And now I can really appreciate that everybody's working to a design aesthetic, you're working to a budget, you know, you've got remote locations, you've got all sorts of very unique parameters that you need to consider. And while you want to meet the design and the aesthetic, you need to balance the practicality and your budget. All right, so we do have a couple of videos on our channel which you can go and explore, and we've worked with a couple of really cool shipping container conversion companies, and we've got some things wrong, we've got some things right, and that was in the exploration of what is the right product for your application. So when we start looking at flooring, and I generally tend to specialize in planked flooring, so there's a lot of like, does everybody know what a luxury vinyl tile or LVT floor is? You know, so it is, you might have it in your home currently. It's a flat, flexible combination of calcium carbonate and polyvinyl chloride. And basically, we glue that down, all right? It's fairly well priced, it's cost effective. And then we've got a couple of other different options, like what I've got in front here. So these three different options, and I don't know if Midran can see, they all look pretty similar, all right? They all got that wood look. But they are made and manufactured in totally different manners, and they respond to the environment in totally different ways. So while you might be chasing this visual, two of these are not going to work in your case at all. All right, so not everything works for everyone. We need to understand a little bit more about how these products are made up. So what's underneath this visual decor? And that's where the real nuts and bolts of specifying the right product come into play. So here we have a traditional laminate floor or HDF or high density wood fiber floor. These products are pretty cost effective. We're quite familiar with them, but they respond to moisture, do they not? They respond to, if you have an uneven substrate, they will break, the joints break, etc., etc. So they're not always ideal, and they also sound quite clickety-clack depending on the thickness and the grade that you have. So when you have a tight environment, which is what you have, generally they're quite smaller builds, we need to take into how the floors are going to experience foot traffic, closed off with regards to the environment. If it's cold, it's nice winter eco pod. We need to make sure that if you're living, you've got the fire going on the inside, nice little box fireplace, and you're breathing in that space. Is there ventilation? Are you going to build up humidity, condensation on the windows? And that high relative humidity is going to impact your floor. So when it comes to the chosen product for what really works, our success factor for these types of floors for your environment, we start looking at a product called Stone Plastic Composite, SPC. You all guys all have a sample in your goodie bags. Sorry, Midran. And basically, this is a rigid, it's very similar to a laminate floor. It's rigid, you click it together, but it is heat stable. All right, that is absolutely mission critical, because when we start exploring vinyl, which is cheaper, this is thermo-responsive. Okay, so when you heat this up, it starts wanting to grow bigger. When you cool it down, it contracts. The Stone Plastic Composite one, the rigid one, is a lot more inert. So when you have a very small controlled environment, like a winter EcoPod, you're putting the heater on, you're living in it, you're building up that ambient temperature, or if the unit is being closed, remember, either Airbnb, EcoPod, it's now being closed for during the week because you only got weekend visitation, all right? The planks start expanding, all right, when that unit is all closed up. And then when that expansion occurs and it's not controlled, the floor can actually start failing. It starts pushing up. It can start pulling apart. So it becomes a real problem for these occasional occupied venues. SPC, rigid. When you heat it up, it only moves a little bit. When you cool it down, it only moves a little bit. So those are parameters that are a lot safer for us in our application. When we look at any of these basic floor types, they're basically broken into the wear layers, the anti-scratch coatings, and then the decor image. So all three options have those top three layers. The most variable and important one to consider is the core layer. That is where all the stress, the strain, the movement is going to occur. All right, so in a eco-build or a converted shipping container, you have a lot of localized foot traffic. So pivoting, so like also retail, where you are at the checkout counter, you're putting your card into the machine or tapping. There's a lot of localized foot traffic, all right, which has a lot of pivot impact on the surface wear layer. That is something to take into consideration. How is your floor going to respond to that? So if you think of, hey, yes, I would love to have engineered oak for my application because it looks beautiful. Everybody loves a lovely long French oak plank. That localized foot traffic is going to destroy it rather quickly. All right, so that's a concession. Like, it's desirable, but is it functional? Is it going to look good later on down the line? Indoor, outdoor, small, contained. You're walking. It's an eco pod or small lifestyle. You've got a deck. You're walking from inside outside. There's not like a big area to transition and get rid of the debris off your feet. Okay, so you're walking into a lot of that grit. That's where the wear layers and how that surface is actually going to engage with the environment. Is it going to get tired really quickly, so that you're going to lose your investment, or are the products going to have a good scratch resistance that are going to look good for longer? It's an important decision. All right, so the high temperatures are actually one of the most critical components. So if you're going to go and put this into the Northern Cape, or you're going to put it into an environment where either it's high temperatures in the climate, or if it's going to be locked up and it's not able to breathe and it's going to become like a little pressure cooker, a lot of these floors are going to really start struggling. They're going to start looking tired, and they're going to start expanding and getting lumpy really quickly. Also, when it comes to like a glue-down LVT, these products are thermoresponsive, as I said earlier on, and they relax into the surface. So whatever the substrate is below it, if you have like half a 5-cent coin underneath a plank, it will relax over that like a wet tissue, and you'll actually see the profile of that half-cent coin telegraph or display through the surface. So substrate prep when you are busy assembling these things is problematic and becomes costly. You also have an issue of skills, which I'm jumping ahead now. But skills on how to install these products becomes mission critical. So if you are going to be joining two shipping containers together, they're going to get trucked out to an eco resort or whatever as separate units and then bolted together on site. That's where you need to take into account how you're going to work the flooring. Are you going to have floor installers install the floor on site, where you might not have the skills? It might be a remote location. You might have you might not have that support infrastructure. Or do you want to consider a simpler product like the laminates, which is just like click and go, but now laminates, moisture responsive. It starts becoming technical on how you balance between the different attributes. So that's where I was mentioning with regards to both on-site and off-site installations. So that transition of when you're connecting up units, where you're transitioning from a bedroom into your kitchen, into your bathroom, and how the products, like if you start breaking up the floor between these different units, it can start to look quite busy. It can start looking really busy. It's mismatched. So that's where if you have continuity running all the way through, really appeals. But then how do you dial that back where the floor can actually handle each of those conditions safely? So like a shower, all that steam and humidity, laminate floors, once again, is not going to be happy with that. That short, sharp location with regards to the foot traffic and the heat, LVT, not going to enjoy that. And that's where we keep on like steering back towards an option like SPC. With regards to the different options, you've got a sample. That's the wood sample that will be in your goodie bag. Again, sorry, Madran. But you also get options of tiles, okay? So different like marble or stone looks where you can interplay them. The tile marble options are a little bit limited with regards to what we have locally available in South Africa, but you also get cementitious looking tiles as well. They tend to be a little bit more of the rectangular square shape versus the planked in the wood options. But there are options out there, and it is about being creative and clever with your specification. With regards to our dominant markets at the moment, people have been exploring the main differences between the SPC and the LVT. So LVT is the floppy one, and the SPC is the rigid one that I'm suggesting for today. And it has proven itself time and time again with regards to the uniqueness of the environment of where these products are going, as well as the costing. So SPC is more expensive than an LVT, but the glue down vinyl needs a perfectly flat substrate. Otherwise, you will get that telegraphing coming through the surface. So that means that you've got to go through the cost of leveling out that substrate 100%. That adds cost. Now you need specialized installation skills, further cost, and then you have the product on top. So once you start putting the bundles together of the end result, again and again, a quick, easy to click together product is going to trump that. But SPC does have some negatives as well with regards to it's very heavy. So if you have weight considerations, you do need to take this into account. And again, it also needs a super flat substrate. So if your substrate is like a ply, a 21 mil flooring ply, if you have a little bit of lippage between the different sheets, like slight height variances, and you go and you put your SPC across that, the SPC is actually quite weak in the vertical plane, so it needs to be super flat, versus if you're in the horizontal plane, it has a lot of strength left and right. So you need to make sure that it is perfectly flat underneath. Are there any questions at this point in time? So what kind of flooring are you wanting to explore? Because I can give you the positive and the negative of pretty much most of them. What's an alternative to a wood plank option that you would want to consider maybe? Do we have any options? Tiles. Okay, so tiles. Tiles, again, they're great. They feel a little bit colder underfoot. You've got the grout lines, so when you have those containers and they're being trucked along from A to B, or there's a little bit of movement in the substructure, now that you've got that twisting, that racking and rolling, and then the grout starts popping out, starts coming loose. Also, 9 times out of 10, you have a timber substrate, so you need to use a flexible tile grout. So yes, but tiles are definitely an option. Anything else? Carpets maybe?
Can you incorporate underfloor heating with these?
Great question, great question. Okay, so underfloor heating, especially on a container build, starts becoming a little bit like, well, is it actually is there too much, is there any value there? On these particular products, you can use underfloor heating, but you want to heat them up slowly and cool them down slowly. You don't want to shock the products, but it can be done. The most efficient option is called hydronic underfloor heating, and that we find is one of the best for across the range because it heats it up and cools it down slowly. Electric, when it rises quickly, it shocks the timber, or it shocks the plastic, or it shocks the substrate, and that immediate jolt causes disruptions in the structure of the product as well as in the layering of the different adhesives or supporting products. But yes, underfloor heating can be used. Generally, we find that a aircon works a lot better because you can go hot and cold, and then it's tactile and it's immediate. But yeah, it can be done. Anything else at this point?
What would be the like benefit of using something that looks like wood compared to actual wood, other than the price?
Moisture. So when you have those closed off environments, we were always expelling moisture in our breath, okay? So when it's cold, we close the doors and windows, etc. We've got the fire going, and we are changing that environment to almost like a greenhouse, little microclimate. And that moisture, it's got nowhere to go, okay? So when the guys are selling you or presenting to you the windows and the doors, and they're watertight and airtight, etc., that can work for you and against you. You also have, the thermal bridge between the outside and the inside, which is major. So when we were dealing with these various shipping container conversion companies, the thermal bridge component of your design is one of the most mission critical components that you need to consider. Because when you've got a temperature shift from the inside to the outside and that thermal bridge, that's where we get the buildup of condensation. So with timber, and I love timber, we're all aspiring, all these options, we're aspiring to real timber products. The timber is where, if we don't manage that environment very carefully, the product will expand, contract, shrink. Also, when we have these units, we have a lot of windows generally because we want to open up the sliding doors, and that sun bearing in on the floor dries out the surface very, very quickly. And I understand the aesthetics and the sound and the experience of sitting on it. It is like phenomenal, but it doesn't last. It doesn't last. Unfortunately, even in the real bricks and mortar homes where people are choosing engineered and it's being misrepresented, the floors are lasting 3, 6, 9 months, and then we start again, either having to sand and recoat, or we're having to dance around that where they're being missold. So it is a problem within our industry, and that's why it's so specific that when you are looking at a build and a project, we need to meet the practical application first before we get into the aesthetics. The aesthetics, out of these options, I've got that natural light, medium oak look out of all 3 options, and I can give you a natural engineered oak as well. It will look almost identical, but the one is going to last, the others are not. Any other questions? Because that was a great question. We know everything about flooring already, don't we? Come on, like any other options you would wish to consider? Carpet. How about a carpet? Do you guys like carpeting? No? Why not? Yeah, no, carpets are on the way back, but it's more loose lay rugs. Loose lay rugs versus fitted carpets. And a lot of our middle and upper high-end market, they're doing fitted carpets for the bedrooms. And then the passageways, we're doing the engineered oaks or the harder surfaces, because everybody, you climb out of bed, you want to put your feet down onto something soft and cuddly. It's like putting it down onto this stuff, any of these options, and it's a little bit coolish and impersonal. Yes?
What about stagnant water? So with laminated flooring.
Yes. Yeah.
Like if water seeps through, then it swells up.
Absolutely.
Does it happen with this?
So when it comes to laminates, problematic. When you got LVT or glue down vinyl, if the water is coming from below, it can attack the adhesive, and then the adhesive gets weaker and the vinyl is now free to expand and contract and start bubbling and peaking and pulling apart. When water gets to SPC, generally when we install it on a DPM or a damp-proof membrane, a sheet of plastic, so it can't really attack the underneath. But say if the unit is flooded or if you have a tap running over and it's sitting on the surface, generally you can have the water sitting there for days and it won't be problematic. But if the water runs to the edge and gets into an expansion gap and runs underneath, and now it's trapped between the underside and that DPM, what we can do is, you would have seen in laminates where it looks like the joints are just pushing a little bit. That is the worst case scenario that we have with that, and obviously it's a visual deterrent, but it doesn't really impact the floor too much. This is one of the most robust options we have in the marketplace currently as a wood look, besides cementitious tiles, that really looks great with regards to what it can do and how it looks. Any other questions? Yes?
If someone, let's say, they wanted a feature wall that looks like marble, and they don't want to do vinyl wallpaper, would you be able to use
Absolutely.
those tiles on the wall?
All right, so we all know it's on trend at the moment where you want to do a little feature wall. We can do planks, we can do laminates, engineered, we can do them all. It's really easy to do, and there's a very simple methodology. We can fix battens and then glue to the battens. We can glue it straight on. Depending on which option you look at, we'll tweak the methodology slightly. But we love doing that. People love doing it like a little guest bathroom where you're running the floor in and then you run it up the back wall or whatever. Absolutely, hands down. Even cladding of ceilings with flooring products. We're doing that as well. So if you want to really get a little bit more of that Nordic kind of vibe, you'll see. Do you guys know Oggy? Okay, so Oggy is like engineered oak, big brand, etc. But like you have these beautiful rooms like this, engineered oak on the floor, and then in the pitch ceiling, you'll have the engineered oak on the ceiling, and then you have the exposed rafters. Looks phenomenal. Looks great. It's on trend. Everybody's doing it. A little bit more expensive. Next question. Yes.
For like solars, what is the best
Sorry?
For saunas.
Saunas. Yeah, okay. So saunas, great question. We all love having a party in a sauna. So you're talking about a heated, confined room. That would require the timber that is used for that sauna room. So these products with that continuous repetitive exposure to heat and moisture, no. We would stop the floor in front of it, and that sauna, whoever your sauna supplier is, they would be cladding that out with their appropriate timber and the appropriate methodology of managing that environment.
You said earlier about for instance, foot traffic on the floor and lasting long.
Yes.
So I just want to ask, what's the general lifespan of the floor if it's in its best condition, no sunlight hitting, if it's perfect, how long would it last? How many years?
Okay, so that's a tricky question, you sly dog. Okay, so it depends on foot traffic.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I'm walking from, and the best example I can use is that if I'm walking from a farm on the plaza and then I'm walking through the front door onto the floor, you've got grit on your shoes and you're walking that in and out, versus maybe a bit more city slicker, I'm walking over my artificial grass or whatever, or an internal store where I'm walking through the hallways before I walk into the store. So I'm walking off a lot of that grit and rubbish that's off the bottom of my shoes. So it depends on foot traffic, and it depends a lot on that localized pivoting. So in a bigger home, we got opportunity to spread our foot traffic across a bigger kitchen or an entrance walkway or a passage, etc. So the timeline of longevity looking better is extended. But as soon as we condense that space into okay, I'm washing the dishes, now I'm cooking, and I'm going to go for a pee over here, it's all very concentrated. So it's the same as what I was saying earlier on with regards to a retail checkout point. Next time you go and check out a retail checkout point, you'll see that the floor type that they choose there, especially for our bigger brands, the guys who've done their homework, their floor choice is very specific. Like Woolworths, the main walkways in are a high foot traffic floor type, and then as you break away into Country Road and whatever, then you go into a little pocket of engineered oak or whatever, because it's more spread out, it's not as concentrated. So on a residential application of these different floor types, they all offer between 15 and 25-year warranties. That means that, and this is where they catch you, all right? So you have a wear layer. So if I can go back to that where you saw the breakdown of the product surfaces, you have almost like a anti-scratch, and then you have a layer, almost the best way I can describe it is like a layer of glass. And as you buy a better quality product, the layer of glass or that wear layer that is protecting the wood or the photographic image below is thicker. So as you spend more money, it becomes greater. But if I've got a thin piece of glass and a thick piece of glass, and I scratch both of them, and I say, well, which one are you more upset about? As a residential client, you're upset about the scratch. It doesn't matter how thick the glass is. You're upset about the scratch, okay? So when it comes to these products, they all scratch and they all wear and tear. But it's a matter of saying, well, for residential, if I get a scratch, I want to replace the plank. If I'm in retail or commercial, I get a scratch, I'm like, moving on, all right? And then I'm not going to worry about it until it actually gets through to the decor. Then I'm going to call somebody to come and replace the plank. So it's a different market, different need and expectation of what the floor needs to be for its lifespan.
I just have a question about going on to that. Someone who has small little Yorkie dogs that like to pee on the floor.
Oh, we love those.
How would the acid in the dog pee work with the top layer of these floors?
I'm going to link this into, so how does dog pee relate to the flooring? Well, when we clean these floors, we want to make sure we're using pH neutral cleaning products, because the high acid or the high alkaline can impact the surface over the long term. It also gives us a better cleaning result. So when you were looking at engineered oaks or timbers, etc., that dog pee, it kills floors quicker than an AK-47, all right? When it comes to vinyls, we've got a little bit more of an issue, and then it starts becoming the tightness of the joint structure of how we can prevent the dog pee getting into the core and start impacting it that way. So I would say between the LVT, the SPC, better options. We start looking at laminate, it starts getting a little bit more dicey, and then we go down to a natural engineered oak, toast. Oh, and my time is up. If you guys have any other questions, oh, hang on, I've got one more slide there. All right, that's the final one. There's a QR code. Please go to the channel. There's a whole lot of different information. Drop us a question, give us a thumbs up, do all that other good stuff. Basically, we love exploring different types of flooring product, and we want you guys to ask questions. You guys are the future decision makers, and we need your ears because products are being specified incorrectly. You can understand where somebody is excited about a price point, and they say, hey, they all look the same, I'm going to go for the cheapest. But you know what? Short term, goedkoop is dierkoop. We know that, all right? I've proven it with these different professional container and EcoPod construction companies, and they have proven that for you. Don't invest in the wrong product. They've done the homework. Understand that there is a reason why they keep on going back to an SPC product. Thank you very much.